Alright guys, this video is going to go through our Keytag and an introduction to our OnShape. So at the moment you can see I've opened up our file. You would have gone through from the main part on classes. So if we have a look back over on the main one here, you're going to go to this classes tab and you'll see your class in here. So I obviously have a whole bunch of other classes, but you'll see your class. From there, you'll go in and open up the assessment that is there called Keytag. So I'm just going to go back into my sample that I'm going to go through with you. Now, going over the setup at the moment. So we've got some settings in our space. You might need to look at your workspace units and make sure that you're in millimeters. Okay, so you'll notice at the moment that I'm on the iPad doing this one. I have a mouse attached. If you don't have a mouse, it makes it a fair bit trickier. Everything that I'm doing here on a computer will work just as well. I would encourage you to think about getting a mouse if you don't have a mouse to do this. So if we have a look, we've got the name of the project that we're working on, any folder that it might be in. Underneath here we go along, we've got the standard toolbar. Now mine looks quite little at the moment. That's because I've got my display and brightness setting out to more space. So all my stuff might look a little bit littler than yours. On a computer, if you hold Control or Command plus or minus, you can zoom in and out. On an iPad, you can go into that display setting in your settings and make it to more space. The other thing on an iPad you want to make sure you've done is in whatever browser you're using, I'm using Edge at the moment, is you want to make sure that you're on the desktop site. So I've got mine on mobile site at the so if I go to mobile site, you'll see it all zooms in quite a bit and you have much less space to work with. I find it much more effective working in the desktop space, which gives you a little bit more real estate to work in. All right, so that's the toolbar at the top. So if I talk about the toolbar, that's this guy here. Over on the side here, this is our feature panel and our parts panel. So as we create things in our design, they're going to build up across here, and you'll be able to see what we make, and we can rename them and go back and edit things by double clicking and working over here. Okay, and down here we've got our tabs. So at the moment we've got a part studio, I've already renamed it, and we've got a drawing that I've called Keytag DXF. So we can always add things more later, but at the moment for this task, those two things are perfect. All right, so that's kind of what you see on the screen. Yours might be more zoomed in or zoomed out, and you'll be able to see more or less, because as you go through, some of these things will be sort of spread out, but as you might make everything a bit bigger, you'll see less of these things and you'll need to do some drop downs to be able to find stuff. So the next thing we do, so at the moment, if I want to reset my view, I can sort of click on this little guy at the top here to be able to set ourselves up. If I right click and drag, I can rotate my view, which I find quite handy at times. The other one that's really handy is if you hold Control and then click either mouse button, I can then do what we call pan. The other one that I use very often to be able to move around is by clicking on a face, or if you're working on something and you type N, and that will basically take you normal, so you're square to that view. To deselect something, you can hit spacebar or just click off into empty space. So now that we've gone through all that, I'm going to go to the front, and you can see we've got these three planes there to start off with. They're going to be in every sketch, every project that we start with. We can hide those if we need, and in this case I'm going to get rid of the top and the right. I'm just going to be working on the front. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select a sketch. So there is shortcuts for these ones, but I'm just going to select on that. So the first thing it's asking me to do is select a sketch plane to draw on. So the way this works is we need to create sketches, and then we sort of build the thickness based on those sketches. So I'm going to click on the front, so you can see I've got the sketch plane now allocated as the front. And now if you have a look at the top, that bar at the top, we've got different things that we can see now. We've got our sketch tools, so line, some rectangles, circles, and a few different types. Arcs, they're probably the main ones that we're going to use. We might use a little bit of symmetry and patterns if you'd like, and the sketch fillets or trim. And then the other one over here is really important, is the dimension. So we can then add values on how big or small certain parts or between lines needs to be. Then over here is our constraints. So these ones are super handy for us to be able to go through and ensure that we aren't using dimensions, and we can make things nice and easy. And I'll show you an example with a square for the moment. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. So notice how it's been highlighted. I'm just going to click and drag. Okay, so that's now there. So notice how if I don't touch anything else, there's a box around here. If I start typing, so I've gone 50 for 50 millimeters and hit enter, it'll automatically allow me to change that. I could add the other dimension in over here, but what I want to do here is, instead of, if I wanted to make a square, I'm going to use a constraint here first. So if you have a look through, equal is probably going to be quite nice for this. If you hover over something, it'll give you some information. So if I want both of these to be the same, instead of doing 50 and then a 50, I'm going to use that equal sign. And what I'm going to do now, so I just deselected that by hitting escape. Hopefully you've got your globe set up as escape. And I've got another process, another video that shows how to go about that on an iPad. But now I've got those set so that if I change this one, so maybe I want 60 instead, it automatically changes. Now at the moment, you can see if I hover over it, it's telling me that that is coincident. So if I hover over that, it will show me what I'm coincident with. This guy here is perpendicular with that one, and it's parallel with that one, and it's horizontal. If I remove one of those, I can then I unlock one of the features that is fixed. So if I have this and I actually go, all right, well, I want this locked onto that corner, so it's coincident. Notice it's gone black. Once it's gone black, I can't move this. If I delete, so I can always delete something, you notice now I can change the size of the shape, but they're still equal. So that's not going to change. So that's kind of the basis of what we're looking at. What we're going to start with is I'm going to go to a different type of rectangle, and the center point rectangle, and I'm going to bring that through here. And we're going to make this rectangle the maximum size that we can have for our key tag. And I'm going to make that 80 millimeters wide, hit enter, and then go 40. So that's our maximum dimensions that we're going to work with. So I've just zoomed in a little bit, so using my scroll wheel. If you try and pinch and zoom on the screen on an iPad, you're going to end up zooming the whole page, and that's going to be a problem. If you find that you do that and the cursor does not align exactly with where you want to press, you'll need to refresh the whole page. So you then go and refresh the page. But I've got my rectangle at the moment, so that's looking good. What I'm going to add in now is I'm going to add in a little circle so that I can, so what I'm going to be setting up here is going to be the outline and my hole. So I'm going to add that in. Now if I hover over this side, notice that one is the midpoint. So I can then come out here and it's automatically added that constraint. I'm going to make that a 6 millimeter hole. And then I'm going to add in a dimension by clicking on D and go, I want that from this side, and I'm going to go 6 millimeters away. Fantastic. Now hit escape or globe to deselect, and now I've got that ready to go. What I'm going to do with the next part is I'm going to make an arc so it becomes like a little tag on this side. So I'm going to click on this side, bring it over here so it's aligned. So hover over that, he's there, and I'm going to bring that up so he aligns there. Now notice that these guys aren't aligned. So if I go in and drag one of these, I should be able to try and make that equal there. So if I move one of these, I'm going to add a line in to try and align those a bit better. I could just do a dimension on both sides, but I'm going to go a construction and draw a line between those two. So the construction line is really handy. It just doesn't allow us to, it won't associate that with drawing the shape. Now I want to make that vertical, so I make sure that those guys are equal. So I'm going to go vertical on the straight, and that's now fixed in. So when I move one, they're both going to move. Now, I think that sort of shape about there. So if I do my D for dimension again, I'm going to bring those two up and have a look. And I'm just going to round that out to 15. So notice how that has now fixed that shape. I'm happy with that at the moment. I'm not going to do anything else to this at the moment. You could always, I guess, if you wanted to add some arcs, all right, I'm going to maybe make that equal to this side. So you can see it goes the same size. You could add some dimensions on how far away it is, or just play with where that sits. I'm just going to leave that there on one side. So from here, I've got my setup for the outline of the page. I'm going to hit tick on that. So now I have that sketch. Notice that little box up here has disappeared. I'm going to go double click back into that sketch. Don't hit sketch again, because then you'll end up with a second sketch and you will end up with multiple versions, and it won't, like multiple sketches, and it won't stack, and it'll be much harder to edit later. So I can always rename this one. So I'm going to rename this one called sketch, and I'm going to call this my outline. Beautiful. So now what I'd like to do is I'm going to make that and extrude that. So notice there's a few different features that we hit. The main one we're going to be using is extrude. So what that does is we push or pull on the shape. So we can see that that's now made that thick. I'm going to change that to being only 3 millimeters. It goes down, and I'm going to hit tick. So there's the outline of my shape. If I want to add a chamfer on one of these sides, I'm going to go on that corner there. I could always add in, let's go 7 millimeters. You can see I can adjust the size or how big I want that as well. I can do the same thing for a fillet quite easily. I'm just going to leave that there for the moment. So you guys can have a play with the size that you want. Notice over here I now have 3 extra things in my feature panel. So I've added that chamfer, so if I want to change that or delete it, I can do that. If I want to adjust the extrude, so I'm going to ignore that there. I've got him there, and if I want to delete that, I'm back to my real simple tag. So from there, we can always go back and edit that. If I go, actually, I want to mirror that. I want to be able to mirror that arc, so I have that there. I'm going to get rid of him, I don't want that. I'm going to add a line in the middle. I'm going to make it a construction line, so shortcut there you can see is Q. And I'm going to draw just a line in the middle there. Hit escape to deselect. And now I'm going to mirror that arc. So I'm going to go that one, and then I want that arc mirrored. And I'm going to go escape now. So now you can see I've got that arc ready to go. If I change this one and make him a bit bigger, it will follow that as well. So now I've got this guy. It didn't remember that part of that extrude, so I can go back up and select those as well. So there's my key tag so far. The next thing I'm going to add on is going to be my cutouts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another sketch, but this time I'm going to draw on this face. So on the face, you can see face of extrude 1, and I'm going to now add some text. So I'm going to click and drag on that, just leave it free at the moment. And what I want to be able to do with this is I'm going to come in and I want to go up to the alert stencil. And what this does is allows it to be able to be cut out completely so that we don't have any, like the little parts of E or anything like that cut out. Now I'm going to put my name and I'm going to put my house and I'm going to hit tick on that. And notice how it's gone. And if you have a look at the shape there, that A won't be cut out because it's got those two little tabs. So it makes it nice and easy to actually be able to laser cut things. So I'm going to go now D for dimension. And I'm going to bring that down to about, let's go 60 wide. Deselect my dimension, and as I move that around, you can see it gives me the option. Now, if you don't want all the text the same size, what could we do? I'm going to go in and I can edit that by right-clicking on that and go edit text, and I'm going to get rid of the house. And I'm going to do that as a second thing. Okay, so then I can move that around where I'd like it to be. So I might go up the top, about there, dimension that so he's 5 from the top, and I'm going to use a coincident to make it centered. So I'm going to line that up, so I choose the whole line and line that up. So now notice it's gone black, that's fixed in. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab another text box and do my free house there. Now I can change the size of that, so D for dimension, and expand that out. So let's maybe make that 50 wide. No, maybe not that tall. Let's go 30. So then deselect, and I can sort of move that around and think about where I'd like that to be. I might leave him about there. So I'm going to go I for coincident and line that up there. So he starts at the middle, and D for dimension, and I'm going to go 7 mils from that edge. So now I've got that there. I could add a little embellishment or something through there. I might do a drawing on there as well. So I'm going to tick on that, and what I'm going to do with that now is I'm going to extrude. I'm going to choose that whole sketch, and what I can do now, instead of adding it, I'm going to go remove and see how we've got the part merging with that piece here. We can see that it's cut out. I'm just going to go tick. So there is my tag at the moment, and if I'd like to, I could then add one more sketch. So this is, I'm going to rename him. That becomes my sketch cutouts, and then I'm going to go one last one, and I'm going to draw something on here. So I'm going to add in another sketch on that face of extrude. We're going to go a circle. Let's go 15 millimeters. I'm going to now go an arc. I'm just going to draw one about there, one about there. I'm going to do a really rough basketball. Deselect that, and I'm going to go one more line through the middle. Okay, so I have this guy selected. He's not perfect. I could obviously do a little bit better if I took more time, but there's my basketball. Now what I want to do with this one is I'm going to extrude again, but because I've done it as a line, it won't see the individual pieces. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to do a thin on that one. So we're going to change the thickness down to 1 millimeter. I'm going to go mid-plane on that. And let's see if it's going to let me, no, even less than that, 1 millimeter. And it should allow me to pick it'll only let me do a solid line. So we might have to do this in a few pieces if we want to do it that way. So it'll allow me to play a little bit with what's happening with this, but you can see if I try and accept all of that, it's going to say, oh, it's red, I'm not happy. So let's remove those pieces. It's happy with that. I'm going to go remove just 1 millimeter. Change the direction. So it goes 1 millimeter in and go tick. Now I'm not finished with that because that's got not a basketball. I'm going to show that again and do another extrude. Still on thin, remove. Let's go 1 and 1, and let's see if it'll let me do more than one at a time. I don't think it'll let me do the cross. So it's happy with those ones. Tick that. And then one more extrude to get that line across. So extrude, still on thin, 1 and 1. Across there and remove that. So now if I go tick, that's there, but it makes it really obvious that my basketball is a bit rubbish. So let's see if we can fix that sketch up just a little bit. So we're going to go equal for those two. We're going to go symmetric for those two. And see if that helps. That one, and now that one. And then I want that line to go through the middle of that. So if I go from the top, how are we looking now? And I want that line to go through that one. And now that's looking a little bit better. So if I tick out of that, it then updates what I had. It still doesn't look like a great basketball, but I'm going to keep going with it anyway. So now I've got the design that I want. We're going to come over to the Keytag, the DXF. This is what we're going to send to the laser cutter. I'm now going to go insert, insert again, and I want that part 1. We can always rename that. We're going to make sure it's 1:1 and drop it somewhere on the page. All we're going to do here now is see it's gone to that extra view, going to escape off that, and we've got this guy here. If I now go right click, I want to show or hide those auto center marks. That deselects those, and what I want to do next is I'm going to go in and right click, and I want to adjust the line style. So for the bits that I would like to just engrave instead of cut all the way through, which is the basketball, I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to change the color to being blue. I'm going to go tick and then tick. So now I've got that ready to go. The black lines are what's going to be cut out, and then the blue lines are what's going to be engraved. So what I can do from here is I'm going to right click on that and go export. I want to make sure that I've got a name and my name somewhere on it. I'm going to change the format to be a DXF, and then I'm going to export. Now this is going to then drop into your downloads, and you'll need to then grab a USB to be able to take it over to the laser cutter. So you can go and tweak and adjust the design that you want, but that is our nice simple starting point. Good luck.